Hi, folks. My name is Eric Barnett, and I'm a singer-songwriter in Charleston, South Carolina, and you're listening to Songs of the Unsung. Songs of the Unsung is a podcast where I talk to fellow singer-songwriters, and it's also a monthly original music showcase at Freehouse Brewery. Freehouse is an organic brewery, tap room, and outdoor beer garden situated on the banks of the historic and natural Ashley River. We brew beer as we wish it to be, organic, local, and seasonal. With over 24 taps, including gluten-free options and house-made organic lemonade, we have something for all palates. Freehouse is open to everyone and welcomes all guests with a smile and a cold beer. Inquire about hosting your event or special occasion with us at info@freehousebeer.com. This week's guest is Ben Somewhere. Ben is a singer-songwriter and guitarist who balances his time as a solo performer and also fronting the bands The Side Hustle and Blue Ricky. Catch Ben alongside fellow songwriters Noah Grove and Mike Friend at Freehouse Brewery on Sunday, December 12th from 2 to 5 p.m. for Songs of the Unsung's first original music showcase. Hey, Ben, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Very good, man. Thanks for coming out.
Oh, appreciate you having me.
So I remember first meeting you at, was it Thai Taco and Sushi? You were running an open mic?
Yep.
Yeah. I think I was hanging out with Holland Hills and her family, and we were just hitting up open mics. And I said, yeah, I think this one is over there. And you were running it. I met you. I knew you were a real nice guy. A couple months later, you asked me to, not even months, maybe a couple years later, you asked me to play at Lux Espresso and Wine Bar. You were doing a thing with Dan Riley out there.
Yep. Yeah, it was that long of a gap.
Yeah. But you've actually, really helped me out through the years by, saying, hey, are you open this date? And so
that's important to me, and I'm always happy to, I try to be helpful. That's really important to me.
I appreciate that. And I finally got to see you play a proper gig, at least an hour of it, the other day at Freehouse.
Yeah.
Yesterday at Freehouse.
Yeah, appreciate you coming out since it wasn't quite packed to the gills this Sunday afternoon and after a holiday. It's never...
When things start cooling down, people start, hibernating, I guess.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it depends. It depends on the space and the location, and it's strange. The holiday season is always strange for venues and turnout. So.
Yeah. So, from New Orleans area, how close to New Orleans, exactly where are you from?
So exactly where I'm from is a town called Houma, Louisiana. Houma is about 45-minute drive. Okay. So it's southwest of New Orleans.
Southwest, and got it.
Yes.
So still right on the bayou and the whole thing.
Oh yeah. Terrebonne Parish is the area. So Houma is just right along the Terrebonne River or bayou, the Terrebonne Bayou, and that's mainly where I grew up, but I bounced around a lot because my parents were there for a little bit. Then we moved to Southeast Texas, so Beaumont, and then we came back whenever I was, I think I must have been about 11 or so. So after that, I was there all the way up through high school.
Sure. And I mean, if that wasn't enough moving around, you then decided to join the Navy. So meant you were, you were all over the place, man. Where all were you stationed when you were in the Navy?
Well, let's see here. This was my final duty station and one of my duty stations for, as I was a nuclear Navy, person. So, I went through training, A school, power school here. I did prototype in Saratoga Springs, New York, upstate. And then, went to welding school, Connecticut, at Groton. So called Rotten Groton for lots of reasons. It's in a great area though. I really enjoyed, the being in New England in the Northeast. And then after that, Kings Bay, Georgia, which is kind of a shithole. And after that, and then while I was doing that tour, that tour was part of being on the USS Louisiana, which is a submarine. And I think I was 2 patrols in. So each patrol is whenever you go underway. Right. And so we had done 2, and then the boat was scheduled to do a change of home port. And that one was to Bangor, Washington, which is right across the Puget Sound from Seattle.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. So I spent I guess that would be, I did 7 patrols out there.
Right on.
Yeah, and so I was there for a few years.
So you could say you've been somewhere.
Yeah, I've been all over the country.
Is that the name?
It was always, actually, it came to be because it was it was on a punk rock chat room. Screech and Weasel, I was obsessed with this band growing up. They're a Midwestern, out of Chicago, punk band. And in fact, my first tattoo was them at 16. But
awesome.
They had a chat room, and so late nights, it was before there was other. You really didn't have message boards,
right.
Or you didn't have Messenger, so
right.
You would go to the chat room, and I could talk to people all over the country.
What are we talking, like mid to late 90s?
Yeah, late 90s, and so I had a dial-up modem, and I would get on the chat room late at night and harass people, and troll, and just all the very early forms of that, and. But my handle was Been Somewhere because it was like Leaving and Joking and a few other punk legends that had the what is it, a pun for a name kind of thing.
Sure. I mean, it works because you also have a last name that is, I've actually never heard it pronounced. Would you pronounce your last name?
Yeah, Robleski.
Robleski.
It's Polish.
Yeah, I would have absolutely messed that one up.
And growing up in South Louisiana with that last name kind of sucked.
Oh, yeah. People had fun with that at your expense, for sure.
Yes.
For sure. So I've scoured the various bios of you I've been able to find, and it says that your father had a very good record collection.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
What in particular in your dad's record collection do you remember, set you off?
Oh, well. It's funny. It's 2 bands that popped to mind that I really remember enjoying was first one was Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I heard, and I said record collection, that might have been one of the first CDs he had.
Okay.
But I definitely had learned how to use the record player. But the CDs were real easy. And
sure.
But yeah, I remember listening to Jimi right off the bat and just not knowing. Like, it was something that was very unearthly. Like, it was almost it was like magic to me because it just made you feel a certain way, and nothing else that I'd experienced to that point could. Especially songs like Purple Haze, and just hearing that as a like 4 or 5 year old kid, it was kind of it was just mind blowing stuff. So I really connected with him. And the Monkees. So that's another one that I really remember, like, just jamming out to. And
okay.
So, so a lot of that, and then and then the Doors and Pink Floyd and a few, from there it's just your what do they call it, dad rock now? Like, I mean,
yeah, dad rock gets a bad name, but it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
like my first introduction into music was the Beatles.
Yeah.
But then, what really got me to want to play guitar was I saw Jimi Hendrix on, a VH1 thing.
Oh, really?
And I was just like, oh, man, I got to do that now.
Oh, really? It was the same thing, huh?
Oh, yeah, Jimi Hendrix. It was like, no, I have to play guitar. And then I envy you so much as a southpaw.
Well, that doesn't...
No, because listen, Jimi Hendrix and Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
I tried so hard. I got, my mom bought me a bass first, and I strung it left-handed.
Really?
I didn't know anything. I tried. I tried so hard.
Well, how old were you when you started, though?
Oh,
playing?
I was probably 13, 14.
Oh, so you were really young.
It didn't pan out, though, man.
Yeah. Oh, but are you naturally left-handed, everything else?
No.
Oh, okay. So
nope.
You just assumed
that was just
you could just choose?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I was like, no, I can do this, guys. I'll figure it out. Because Jimi Hendrix and Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Are there 2 cooler guys at their instrument?
No, I mean, and they're also too, I mean, they're iconic lefties, and then if you jump a generation, you got Kurt, and so it's pretty crazy whenever you consider that 2 of the most iconic guitar players of the 20th century were lefties, I guess, but I'm not anywhere close to being that level of either of those guys.
No, but the cosmic thing you're talking about. I remember it was a documentary on Jimi Hendrix, and then at that time they were doing a lot of those re-releases.
Mm-hmm.
Like First Rays of the New Rising Sun, they finally put that out, and I heard that song, was it New Rising Sun?
Mm-hmm.
That I heard that, and I was like, man, I got to learn how to play that. The first riff I learned was a really poor version of Purple Haze.
Yeah.
And it was that was
I've never learned any of his stuff.
Really?
Yeah, I guess it's funny. I think I'm intimidated by it. Yeah.
Sure, because it's something that if you're not nailing it, you have no business playing it.
Yeah, and I felt like that was also too. He's, I mean, he was playing it upside down, right? It wasn't strung left-handed. So.
No, he strung him left-handed.
He did.
They said he could pick up a righty guitar and flip it. Yeah, and I'm sure he could, but So
I think though, like a lot of things that get overlooked with Jimi is how much work went into becoming that individual, that cosmic person. Yeah. Because I mean, if you really dig around and you find that he's in the backing band to Little Richard, and he was just sitting there, and he was, he did his time.
Yeah, he absolutely paid his dues. And it wasn't till Chaz Chandler took him over to England and put a band together, and they combined it with the psychedelic thing. And at the time, like, if you were a guitarist, you had to be in England. I mean, it was Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page. Yeah. I wonder, and I've asked this before, I wonder if you look at 60s guitarists and the population of England versus the population of the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And they all came from England. I mean,
and I think one of the things that from the research I've done, and just the things that I've checked out and been turned on to about that particular scene that I've noticed is that England was very, very much into supporting the arts and had schools dedicated to it. And so, of course, they were just churning out these talents. And it wasn't just the fact that they had more. I don't think they had necessarily more talent there, but they were supporting the arts in a way that wasn't being supported in any other place. So
it was one of those things in music where it's such a right place, right time sort of thing. Because like at that time, all the British guys were really getting into American blues.
Yep.
And that's where, and you had to be there. It was a thing where, like you and I can drive around Charleston and see local musicians, but their local musicians were like, oh, Pete Townsend would go see Eric Clapton, and then they'd go see, and it might have been walking down the street. So
and it was just a scene, and but I think about both the Rolling Stones and the Clash. So I mean, even a whole generation apart, basically, got their start in art school, right? Like I mean, so both of them.
Oh yeah.
So and so it really just goes to show how much a culture that has support of the arts. What it can produce.
Oh, sure.
If it's backing it,
and if it values art, people doing art, like yeah. So, started out playing saxophone in elementary school.
Yeah.
How long did that stick around for?
It stuck around. So
you still own a saxophone?
I don't. Okay. I don't, and it's unfortunate because I still love the instrument and the sound that it produces. But it stuck around. I guess we started pretty early. School band started in like 5th or 6th grade, maybe even 4th grade. I even remember the name of the first teacher that made an impression on me in music. Her name was Miss Mcgowan, and Mr. LeBlanc had come before her and forced me to play a trumpet. I'm serious. So you got in a band, and then he lined all the kids up that were interested in playing in band, and he looked at your physical features.
Your embouchure, they call it.
Yeah. And then he's like, you're going to play this. And he put me on trumpet, and I fucking hated trumpet. So I really did not have an aptitude for it. I struggled with it. I was always third chair or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Miss Knockan took over that program, same school, and she was really cool about just. I was like, hey, I really want to play saxophone, and she's like, well, play saxophone.
That's awesome.
Then I was first chair, like without ever practicing much and sight read, and I could just do it.
So you took to it, yeah.
Yeah, but it only lasted up until junior high.
Okay.
I actually got. So we had a teacher, I won't name her name, but she wasn't very good at controlling the classroom, and it was a low income area of Louisiana, and there was a lot of kids just that didn't even want to be in any class, just causing a ruckus. And I actually was one of them. There was a girl I had a crush on, and I just continuously would talk to her, and she was also play sax, and so I'd talk to her. And one day we were at after school practice. We were getting ready to do our first, I think it was marching thing or something, and I kept talking to her, interrupting. And she's like, she interrupts me. And
yeah, of course.
I was so taken aback. And she's like, do you even want to be in this, particular marching event? And I was like, no, I hate this class. And she was like, well, then you can leave. Like it's a typical kind of line in the sand thing that teachers throw there and like don't think that they're going to get a reaction. But I literally took my saxophone and I packed it up and I walked out of the classroom.
Well, and she to be fair, she asked an angsty teen.
She did. And I was, and
you're like, you're not going to confront me.
That was also in 8th grade. And I think my parents had split like right around that time frame. Yeah. So I was, you want to talk about angsty? Like my parents split when I was like 13.
Wow.
So I was just all kinds of pissed off through 8th and 9th grade. And I feel sorry for anyone that had any contact with me at that point in my life, honestly.
Is that where punk rock started coming into punk and hardcore?
Hell yeah. Because, I mean, it was originally metal, was like the thing that was accessible.
Sure.
And then once like punk had kind of come into the airwaves and, like first it was Green Day and then Rancid. And it was like once Rancid, once I heard that, I was like, yes, this is my shit. This is my music. Yeah. And I could relate to it. And from there it was just a spiral into everything else that just get deeper and deeper and deeper. And at some point you're like, fuck the mainstream. And I'm going to burn all your metal t-shirts and get rid of all that shit. And
now you had good access to all that?
Surprisingly so, because there were other people that really cared about music, punk in general. And they were all around. There were other friends. And I had a guy that his name was Cunningham, and he was a drummer. And we became close friends, and he really like turned me on. I remember one day he gave me this, it was called Beach Plus. It was a mail order thing. They were out of Florida, and he was like, he handed me their catalog, and it was just names of bands, and he had like a rating system that he had done, and it was like 3-4 stars, you know, and it was like, okay, you need to get this. So, it was based off his opinion and stuff, but I was like, okay, cool. And so I would just order off a Beach Plus or just what the other kids were. We had actually a scene, and it then ended up snowballing into, wanting to do it, wanting to be in a band, wanting to sing for these bands.
Started singing before it became bass guitar?
Yeah. Okay. I originally started singing. I made friends with that guy. Glenn actually ended up joining a band called they were a band called the Fill-Ins, I think originally, or some other Circle K. They had a bunch of different names, but eventually they were like, hey, one day they were playing at a wow, this is like really crazy for me because I haven't thought about how this all interconnected. But one day they were out playing at a go-kart track. Circle K was playing at the go-kart track, or the Fill-Ins, whatever they were called at the time. And their singer didn't show up. And they're like, why don't you get up there and sing? Like people, for some reason, like I guess skinny brat that's pissed off, like sings like he would want to get up and sing.
It's gonna work, yeah.
And the first song that I ever sang was Operation Ivy's Knowledge. And I remember I remember that was the moment where the band got started, and we ended up calling ourselves the Superheroes,
Awesome. Yeah.
And so from there it was vocals onto, that band kind of lasted, didn't really pan out. We ended up doing another thing. Well, we did a little bit of local shows, and then we ended up doing another incarnation, people rotating in and out, a hardcore thing called Dissent, DISSENT. Protest,
for sure,
not descent into the downward spiral. And that didn't last. That lasted a couple of years, maybe, if that. That didn't last very long, because at one point, the drummer, the bassist, both decided, hey, we want to be a Christian punk band. I'm like, well, I'm not Christian, so that's not really going to work out. And I was very much an atheist at the time, and very not into organized religion. And so from there, I think that's where we go into picking up the bass, there was a hiatus there, and I was like, oh, I'm going to pluck along on this bass guitar and kind of like playing along to like the Ramones, Screech and Weasel, these really specific to the Ramones style genre. And that's how I kind of learned how to play bass.
Now, were you writing lyrics for these bands you were singing for? Were you doing covers? What was the split there?
It was all original.
All originals.
Yeah, it was all original. And we had a little scene, we actually played, there was a place called, it was originally called Scooby's Pizza. And then it got converted to a thing called the Main Street Music Hall. And it had 3 band rooms in the back. We would pay like a $75 a month, $100 a month for this room. It had no windows. It's probably totally a violation of fire code. It was like a large closet, and it sloped down toward the Terrebonne bayou. Like it was
Okay.
actually sloped down because it was on the embankment to the bayou.
Sure.
And
Well, if it floods, it has to drain.
Yeah, my grandmother gave us my grandmother gave us an AC unit, and we practiced there. There was actually a decent amount of bands that came through and played. So
You
we
did
were
all
right
the
there.
DIY shows and all,
Yeah, man.
all the stuff.
DIY and all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah.
I remember some of the bigger names. There was a band called Frenzel Rom, and then there was Crowbar. And so we had the band room behind, and so like everybody wanted to hang out somewhere before the show and do their thing, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And so there was a few bands that were like, I look back on it and like the punk scene was really crazy in the 90s because these guys were like in their 20s and they were hanging out with like 15-year-olds and getting high, like it was really fucked up, honestly. Like,
so what age are you about this time?
Around the time of the music hall, I was around 16,
16.
So and I had extra fuel for the pissed offness because the girl that I dated for a couple years, like we had broken up. So I was like, I'm gonna get my nipples pierced and I'm gonna fucking get a tattoo. And my dad, I'm like, and that was an escape. Like I would just get dropped off for the weekend and I'd just, hang out at the band room every weekend.
So saxophone's gone at this point.
Saxophone is long gone. Saxophone got traded in for a PA.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I had a very similar story, and this is going to go along the left-handed lines too.
Yeah.
I went into the first day of band where they looked at everybody's embouchure and they said, "You're not meant to play." I wanted to play saxophone so bad.
Oh, really?
And I ended up playing trumpet.
Oh, no shit. Exactly the same thing.
No, I actually went to college for trumpet.
Oh, but you did take to it.
I mean, as well as, it was okay. It was
but saxophone's so cool.
It's way cooler.
Yeah. Like when you think of it, like it's just, there's like so many songs that to me, the sax is like the thing. Like when it comes into, Walk on the Wild Side, right? Like it's like the very end and it's like this moody thing.
Well,
like it.
At the same time, though, saxophone is also, there's more bad versions of saxophone, too.
Yeah.
Because there's like your Kenny G, and there's like your, was it Bleecker Street? Is that the song? What's the song with the, dun, 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 dun,
I don't know. Some people really hate it. It's one of those instruments that's really defines, it can draw a line.
Yeah.
And I recently was reading this book about genres.
Yeah.
And I think, and this is huge conjecture, and I'm just going to throw it out there. But I honestly think it comes from being like, you can almost measure someone's whiteness, like, and they're seriously like, because because think about it, right? The most R&B and country artists back in early 50s, 60s. What's the one thing that made the band different?
Oh, a horn section?
Yeah, horn section, and the saxophone in particular.
Right.
You can have a saxon as your whole horn section. So,
right.
So I think that even rock, right? Rock got rid of the saxophone at one point, right?
Yeah.
And as it became more of like a white genre. So I'm not going to get too heavy into it, but
I think too, like these days, I think you can have an ironic saxophone as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And an ironic saxophone just does exactly the same thing that a bad saxophone used to do in the 80s and 90s.
But it can carry like a whole band too.
It can, if done well. I mean, I don't know if you remember Sweep the Leg Johnny at all.
No.
It was like a punk band with a saxophone.
Yeah.
It was.
Well, the English Beat's a good like two-tone ska band that really like it was all just one baritone sax. That's all they needed.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, baritone saxes too, man.
Yeah.
Those blast. Yeah. What are trumpet players doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Miles Davis is getting the girls. Don't get me wrong.
But that's the thing, right? Like we go back to, so you said you play trumpet. Like, yeah, we all know like that's the person that I think of, like who made it cool, and he even wrote about it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Can you think about another one though?
Not really.
Wynton Marsalis is not cool.
Honestly, I can't.
No,
I can't, and it's unfortunate.
And also, while I'm talking about not cool, I'm going to betray my lack of knowledge of punk.
Yeah.
Because here's what happened. I stuck with classic rock.
Yeah.
And it was all a matter of access to.
Yeah.
I grew up in middle Ohio, country cornfields.
Yep.
I heard what was on the radio, and I had like a couple cool friends.
Yeah.
And you got to have cool friends.
Yeah, you do.
But like I went to a school where the graduating class was 68 people.
Oh yeah.
And it was
wow.
like,
yeah. So you were really kind of isolated out there.
I just thought when I'd heard about Pavement that I was the coolest guy in the world. But you know,
well, it is a matter of access, and it's a matter of like a scene.
It hit you at the right time. It sounded like too. You were.
It really did.
It was another. That's where you were. That was the time. That was the angst of it.
The proximity to New Orleans was kind of like a thing. It always was.
New Orleans is,
but it's not known for punk.
No, not at all.
I mean,
not at all.
Nowadays they have a few bands that are coming out of there that did it, but it's really not a New Orleans thing.
Yeah, my knowledge of punk really doesn't extend beyond like, of course, the Ramones and the Sex Pistols and Green Day, Dookie and Before, and the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 soundtrack.
that's a big entry point.
That is a great. I mean,
for a lot of people, that was where they heard it first.
I mean, yeah, that's where I heard about that's where I heard Rancid.
Yeah,
that's where and I don't know. There was a time in college where I would, I'd listen to Fugazi and like a little bit of like the tip of the hardcore iceberg, as it were. But yeah, that's. So my knowledge of punk really doesn't, or like the rockabilly that touches the punkier side. I guess. I don't know. That
stuff can be, I kind of got dabbled into that for a little bit, but I've always just, once you got into punk, it kind of like, it consumed everything. Yeah. And but it's funny though. You mentioned like you stuck with the classic rock, and once my daughter was born, I progressively became more and more absorbed going back. I kind of moved away from that scene just because it wasn't something that there are parents that blast like punk metal, like just extreme stuff with their kids in the backseat. But for some reason, it didn't feel right to me.
It either works or it doesn't. I mean, if it's like, and there are some kids that take to it, and there are just some that aren't. I mean, sometimes you just got to play Baby Shark for a kid.
You do. She always liked really cool shit. It was, I feel like punk is what eventually, like, it was like, it's more punk to like, go listen to this. That's not really, punk. Like, you got tired of that, that sound.
Yeah.
Because it can be repetitive, or it can be, the energy of it can be a bit much at times. It's not meant for every single listening experience, Right.
The one thing I think about when I think about punk is it's kind of considered a quote scene, or maybe like an underground situation.
It is.
Like a lot of my experience on like something that delved beyond basic rock and alternative was when I went to college, and of course, that's where you meet more people.
You probably got the radio too, college radio where people were turning on and stuff. Where'd you go to college?
Bowling Green, Ohio.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I've passed through there a few times.
It's more. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's more a thing where just like you're walking through a dorm room and you're meeting just people from other places, and you're hearing music you haven't heard before. Yeah. Like, and then that's where I heard like Fugazi for the first time.
And that's where I heard
Black Flag, and that's where and it's
I guess for me it's like it just became an all-consuming thing, and I think it does have a lot to do with the timing, not just of what was going on around me with my friends, but also like what was going on in my own life, because it was the only music where like the Descendants had a song like "My Dad Sucks," and then like I fucking hated my dad. Like I love him, but at that age, like he was like the big authority figure in my life, So we were always butting heads. So it was like it was the only music I could relate to. It was the only music that was saying something that spoke to me at the time.
For sure.
And the thing is later in life, other stuff began to I began to connect again with like. Yeah, Jimmy, and I finally could actually feel like I heard what he was saying.
Well, I'm a believer in like there's something to find in every bit of music,
sure.
And even something that you grow out of one day, and you go back and you listen to it, you might find a new thing out of it.
Oh, sure, it's all about perspective at the time.
Sure,
and I think that's art in general, and and I guess like there. Okay, I'll have to say this though, and this is coming from the punk background, that I do think that there's a lot of music out there that doesn't really have much value, right? Like
100%.
There's a lot of music out there that's really just a beat, and it's just and it's really just there to kind of fill a space in an environment.
Oh yeah,
and that's fine. Like I'm not, and I would never down on that. And in fact, like I'm sure there's a lot of pop music that fills that particular, what's the right word? It's a need, right?
It's a need.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of music made for people that don't like music.
That's a good way of putting it.
It's very consumable,
mm-hmm.
and actually, as a person that really likes music production, I can it's nice to be able to look at it from a technical perspective, and say like, okay, this is what you're doing, this is the result it has. It's very science. It's like McDonald's French fries.
Sure,
they taste delicious.
Yep.
They're horrible.
Yeah.
They're scientifically made to make you want more of them, and they're not food.
Yeah.
But from like a production standpoint, there's something to be learned from it.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think it's music made for people that don't like music.
Yeah.
Which is, I love, like, music is top 5 things I love in this world.
Yeah.
And I hate most music.
Uh-huh.
It's just because why would I spend my time on that?
Yeah.
When there's stuff over here I haven't discovered I could be looking for instead.
That's true. That feeling of that can almost be overwhelming to me. Like, the amount of stuff that I haven't discovered. And then also too, I totally agree with, spend your time on things that have value to you.
Sure.
And because that is important. That is really important to me. And I think that's why I've always gone back to punk. Or at some point, like cyclically, because it always had so much value to me. Now,
acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
Did that really come into play when you were in the Navy?
Yeah, actually, it did. Because my ex-wife, she bought my first one it was a Christmas gift.
Okay.
And I can't tell you the exact year, but I think my daughter must have been about 1 or 2 years old.
Okay.
So it would have to been like 2007.
All right.
So there was a long gap where I just kind of plucked on a bass. I always kind of had one around.
Sure.
But you can't really play a bass guitar by yourself unless you're like a total freak.
Incredible at it.
Yeah, like Jacko or like there's a few people that I know that they'll play on their own. And I guess nowadays too, you can have access to audio equipment where you could play along,
Sure.
and that opens up a new dimension. Or it could be like Mike Watt or someone who's just like can take it and do something really. But for me, like you can't really write a song. You can write a song. It's going to be 3 chords. It's going to be like a Ramones, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be, it's going to dictate the style.
Yeah. But so the acoustic was a Christmas gift. It was a Washburn that she grabbed for me. And, she knew I loved music.
Yeah.
But of course, there wasn't a lot of time in my life around then. But I got the acoustic, and then I got a For Dummies book. And then also, too, there were a few other guys that played on the boat. Uh-huh. And so I really think that it was being around other people that were that knew how to play, and they would bring their guitars. We were on a SSBM, which is a larger submarine that has the nuclear missiles.
Where you could actually bring a few things.
Yeah. And so we would hide them in the missile compartment.
Sure.
And then, so after watch, we'd get together, and I learned some rudimentary stuff, your open chords and a couple of hammer-on things. Didn't even know what a hammer-on was, but, one of the dudes was from Kentucky, and Brandon White, and he was like, he could play bluegrass, and he was
wow, okay.
Yeah, so there was a song that I had written that I had all the basic chords, but I was kind of like doing a little bit of runs. And he was like, here, do this. And then he added this hammer on that. And it took me like years to get that right. But it's still part of that song. He actually added that little note. And it adds so much to it. But him and my Chief Deering at the time. And then there was actually, once again, a punk connection. But there was a place called the Monette Saloon, which is in Bremerton, Washington.
Okay.
And there was an open mic there. And everybody would go and they would play at it. And I never went. And I got the guy from MXPX, one of the guys, lived there, and he would go and play, and everybody would, got to know him and say hi, and they thought it was the coolest thing. But I never went. I think I was just really I knew that I couldn't. I was very critical of my own ability at that time.
Okay.
I knew that I didn't feel like I had it.
When did you start playing solo acoustic guitar in front of people?
Okay, so. That would have happened around 2010, 2011.
Okay.
And big props to Martin Butcher. He's the guy that runs the Ice House Open Mic over in Somerville, and he's been doing it every Sunday evening. So whenever they got shut down for a small bit of time because of what happened last year. But every Sunday evening for years and years and years and years.
Now, did you find it? I played in bands in high school, played in bands in college. Really didn't play gigs in high school. It just wasn't a thing in the country.
Yeah,
like we'd play in somebody's barn for their graduation or their birthday or whatever. But at college is where I first started playing in bands.
Yeah.
What's the difference between having a band behind you and being up there by yourself with an acoustic guitar?
Well, there's a bunch of people that can get up there and do it with a band behind them.
Yeah.
And would never get up there with just themselves. Because the first time I went in to do it, I had the Washburn, and I don't think I even had it modified to be an acoustic electric at the time yet. Okay. And it was still a smoking bar, and I mean upstairs of the ice house is I didn't know anyone in the room, so it was fucking creepy, honestly. Like and Butch was kind of like just doing his thing where if there's no one there, he's just playing. So like I'd only heard about it I think on the internet, so like I didn't know, hey, I can approach this guy, and I didn't have the courage to do it either, so I didn't play.
Okay.
The first time I went there.
Yeah.
I don't even think I talked to Butch. I was terrified. So it took me going again, and I eventually like worked up the courage, got up there, and just played guitar. I just had some guitar songs.
Yeah,
I couldn't even sing and play at that point. And it just kind of like once I got up there and did it, it was fucking sheer terror. Like I was terrified. I was like trembling, and my nerves were so bad. And I've never been diagnosed with anything, but I mean, panic attack or whatever the fuck that. However, people describe that. Yeah, that's how I felt up there. Yeah. And it was just a horrible experience, but it's something about it. I kept going, and eventually I'm sitting down and I'm recording in front of my computer, and I'm playing Proud Mary, and I just start singing it, and I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. And then at that point, it's like you start learning the catalog,
Right on.
It's just cover songs, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, to me, Charleston's a little bit different from where I'm from. Like I said, where I'm from, there's not a lot of opportunity to play, but Ohio in general, it's more of like you can play originals. Like typically, I play a lot in Cincinnati, and Cincinnati, if you play originals, you're going to get put on like a bill with two other guys, and maybe there's a band that headlines or whatever, and and you sit up there and you can play your own songs. Yeah. And make decent money. And it's one of those where you play too many covers, they'll boot you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of wineries and bars and what have you, but that's more of a cover band sort of thing. That's more of a just like...
The cover originals thing is always like it's interesting depending on where you're at.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And what their take is on it and how they feel about it.
Yeah, I came to Charleston I played my own songs in Ohio before I moved here. Mostly my own songs. I didn't know a whole lot of covers. I just knew some Tom Waits songs, basically. And I got here and I discovered quickly that's not enough. Yeah. Yeah. And I still don't have the iPad.
That's good.
I still don't play a song I don't like.
Yeah.
Which actually it helps if you don't have an iPad.
Yeah. Well, it also helps if you don't play a song you don't like. That's a problem. Yeah. Like, and I straight up would call anyone out on doing that. If you're getting up there, I mean, that's let's just face it, like that's being a whore. Like I mean, like you're whoring yourself if that's how you do things. If you're playing something you do not like, you don't have some connection to it in your soul. Yeah. Like, what's the point of that? Like, that's like negating your own existence. And I get it, but damn.
I mean, we also have the benefit of having day jobs.
Oh, of course, right?
So I can be judgmental in my own brain, but at the same time,
we can do that. But and then we can also say too, right? Like, we have day jobs, but do we do it so we can have the freedom in our art? Like, I say all this, but I have a cover band.
I don't know.
I have a cover band, but we kind of like draw the line, like on, we're not doing 100%, you know, we throw in originals, but I do think that even those guys out there that are playing covers, like, come on, like, play things that are you have a connection to.
What I said earlier, it helps to not have an iPad.
Yeah.
It's because when somebody comes up and say, do you know such and such?
I can't pull it up.
I always just say, hey, have you seen those guys that they have the iPads and they can just look stuff up? Yeah. Well, I don't have the iPad. I only play what's in my brain. This is what my brain knows.
Yeah.
So that's kind of I don't flat out tell people I hate that song and I don't want to play it.
Yeah, of course not. No,
so,
I'm always I'm calling this a space where I'm being a little more frank, because whenever I'm out there performing for people, I'm very courteous. I'm not about I have total respect for the audience and people that may not understand that, like, a lot of times people are very polite. Sure. And the thing though, I'm starting to get tired of hearing it is, do you take requests? Because even though it is a polite thing, it also insinuates that, like,
I don't like what you're doing, you should do this instead.
Exactly. So it's like, but at least I appreciate them asking, so I could say no, like, because I don't technically.
My usual response is, if I know it, and I only know songs I like.
Yeah.
But also, I wish, and a lot of time people are open-minded enough to say, tell me what it is you like.
Yeah.
And I'll play you something that maybe you haven't heard, but you might like better.
We do that quite a bit.
Yeah.
And that works for us in most spaces.
Sure.
Because, if someone says they want to hear, I'm trying to think, Chris Stapleton, I'm like, well, I don't know
Tennessee
this,
Whiskey
but I can.
Yeah.
Oh, God, Tennessee Whiskey. It's a great song. Great artist, too. But, hey.
I just don't like Chris. I just don't like him.
Yeah.
It just doesn't do anything for me. Maybe, hey, you know what?
What is it?
Am I a little bit jealous here that maybe he's out there doing that thing? Because I also look at Tennessee Whiskey like a song like.
Does it feel like, going back to what you were saying, this manufactured sound?
I would never try to write something like that. Is what I'm saying.
Uh-huh.
Now, is it a very good version of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll concede that point.
You know what my problem with it is?
Yeah.
Just the fact that it mentions whiskey. It's like...
It's a buzzword. It's a buzzword, man. It's a folk music buzzword. Whippoorwills,
really
whiskey,
bad right
jumping
now.
On trains, going down to the railroad track.
Yeah, it's pretty...
You didn't do any of that. Come on, man.
But that's kind of folk at its heart, right? Like, it's like, we don't do any of that. You just kind of, like, recycle something, right?
And
like, make it yours.
Yeah, and that's why, like, I always call it the goalie. When I sit down to write a song and I find, like, maybe I do that, it doesn't get past the goalie.
Yeah.
But my goalie is, he's such a good goalie that I don't write songs. That's
you know what's that can be a problem, right? You're too self-critical.
100%.
It's funny though, for me, when I write, there's a certain type of writing, and especially what I write for the acoustic, I'm very much I'm a pop writer. Like, I want to be, dude, if one of my songs can blow up like that, oh man, I would totally, I would go for the ride. Cause you know what?
Well, you may as well.
Because fuck having that day job.
Yeah, for sure. No,
if you were to get signed to a major, right?
We could say whatever. You know what? Chris Stapleton, I could say I don't like him, but
he's living it.
Yeah,
he's living that.
He has
that
some houses,
and
he's driving that Tennessee Whiskey car.
And he's
around.
also not playing a bunch of other people's songs.
That is for damn sure.
And
although I have to tell you, I saw Zac Brown on accident because he opened for the Stones 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Number one, Zac Brown's another guy I don't like because I have a beard and it's a long beard, so automatically people say, do you like Zac, or do you play Zac Brown? I say, I own a mirror, but no, I don't play Zac Brown. So Zac Brown opened for the Rolling Stones. Dude played mostly covers.
Oh, really? Yeah. It's very odd, huh?
It was covers that was just like, seriously, dude?
That's really strange.
Like we were in Georgia and they played Devil Went Down to Georgia. Okay, I get it.
I saw the Roots play here at Riverfront Park, and they played like over half covers. Which that was kind of crazy to me, but I know hip hop well enough to know that, like, that's kind of like taking a song and putting your own spin on it. It's very much
100%
that genre. But they it was really strange to me because it wasn't what I expected.
Right.
But I mean, they're out there. Shit, they made a lot of money that night.
I mean, Zac Brown made a lot of money, and some of it was mine, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something, dude.
Huh.
He played Bohemian Rhapsody.
Really?
Really?
No shit.
Really?
That's like weird.
We were going to get more beer, and I'm like, is he done? Is this like the house music?
So that's really odd to me.
And she's like, no. My wife was like, no, I think he's playing Bohemian Rhapsody.
So this is happening on a global scale?
And I was offended.
Yeah.
I got offended. We were in the beer line, and like the person behind, because that's a song you just don't touch.
I wouldn't. The only time I want to see it touch is when someone's like way too hammered to be doing it during karaoke.
Oh, that'd be great. Yes, 100%.
That's the only time I want it to happen.
Not Zac Brown that I've paid money for.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. And I really think Queen's one of those things. Like Freddie Mercury has such an iconic voice.
Yeah.
Whenever people ask me if I could do, there's a couple artists that I won't touch because.
Well, it's like Jimi Hendrix. It's like you didn't learn because if you can't do it, don't do it.
Yeah, it's not just that too. It's just like They did something that was so much themselves.
Yes.
That trying to imitate it is very, it could be, I feel like it's almost insulting.
There are even like songs I consider to be sort of pedestal songs.
Yeah.
Like that song is on a pedestal.
Yeah.
They did it. That's the definitive version of it. And another one doesn't need done.
Yeah. And also too, like you're there to open up for the Stones. And I would think you would want to promote yourself and your own original material.
I guess. I just remember like being in the beer line where I was going to pay like $9 for a Miller High Life, or not even as good as that.
Well, you had already paid a lot to see the Stones.
Sure, 100%.
I've looked at tickets before.
I just remember the person in line behind me was like, is Zac Brown playing Bohemian Rhapsody?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. And they were like, that's a statement. I said, it's an incorrect statement. So let me get back on track here.
Sure.
You moved to Charleston.
I did. Started
playing the open mics.
Well, I got transferred here because Charleston was my final duty station.
Yeah.
Because I was a staff instructor at the nuclear prototype.
Okay.
And so I was, a lot of shit was going on around that time. The open mic, and we could tie it into the open mic, but a lot of stuff was going on in my personal life. My daughter was born in 2007, so she was only about 2 years old, and so whenever we moved here, and then she was about 5. So this would have been 2012, I got out of the Navy, got a divorce. I'd gotten married just, 4 or 5 years before.
Okay.
And became a single father all in the year of that, all that year.
Wow.
I still, though, had, and I'll be honest, like, part of it was, I think, overcoming that fear of being in that space, of playing those songs, it gave me a confidence that I had lost in the Navy, because in the Navy, although I had some really great mentors and people that encouraged me, I wouldn't even say I had a mentor, because no one ever took me on and mentored me.
Sure.
But I mean, although I had experience, that toward the end of that, all I had was people that wanted to take a piece out of you.
I don't get me wrong. I 100% appreciate the people that have the stones to go into the armed forces and do something for their country. I also feel that maybe part of what gets them by is taking the individual out of the person.
Yeah.
Because you have to work as a unit. No, and I get that. I totally get that. But there's a thing where, I mean, you can be an individual when you're off duty, but you are what you are when you're on. And I understand how that could change someone's mentality maybe a little bit. That
was a big conflict too. Yeah. And that's an interesting insight, because I do feel like I had lost a lot of myself. I'd become and I really felt like at the end of that, I'd become someone that I kind of hated, I really, and that was as a young punk, that's your ultimate fear,
also people go into the armed forces when generally when they are 18 to 22 years old. And I don't think you're not a kid anymore yet. I think you're still a kid at that point.
Oh, absolutely. You're very impressionable.
I don't even feel like anybody really learns who they are as a person until they're well into their 30s.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Your 20s is a decade to try and fail at all the things.
Yeah.
And if you can make it out of your 20s without too much debt, too bad of a police record, or unfortunately children that you weren't planning on.
Yeah.
you have it. I mean, you don't have to accomplish anything in your 20s.
Yeah.
Except failing at everything.
Well, the Navy was like that for me. My track record in the Navy was like just a series of. I remember all the mistakes more than anything else.
Yeah.
Like I could tell you. They've got. there's things that they teach at the nuclear power school, and it's shit that I did.
Yeah. Oh, I'll tell you what, man. You learned from it, and you still have all your fingers.
Yeah.
And you still have both arms.
I did, and I come out of it with a pretty. There's some lingering after effects of my time in my service, but not nearly someone that came out with like true sense of PTSD or.
Right.
If I did end up with some mental issues, it's never been diagnosed, but it's definitely something that you'll carry with you for the rest of your life. But thinking about so I got out of the Navy, I was doing the open mics, and it was the Navy that was the open mic that really gave me the confidence to do that, to also take control of my own life. Because things at home were not peachy keen. They were pretty bad. I became a single father toward the end of that year. Got out of the Navy right after that, a couple months later. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do with myself. And I had this house I was paying rent on. I didn't have a job lined up. And then I landed the job as a maintenance tech with CBRE. And I was like, okay, well, it gave me a start. It was a fresh start. And I used my training as a machinist mate to kind of like work my way into commercial real estate. But so with the music, I kept going the whole time I was a single dad. Like I had a really awesome babysitter, and I could leave my daughter there overnight. She was right around the corner from where we lived, and basically like a grandmother in a lot of ways. And I would just I would still go. I'd still go do the open mic.
Nice. At what point did the side hustle start up?
The side hustle started after I had become a let's see. The right way to tell this is I'd married my wife. I had, we had been together for about a year. And then I ended up getting promoted I switched jobs within CBRE. That is a huge corporate company, right? But I switched jobs to becoming an AFM, which is assistant facilities manager. And I was at working for Booz Allen Hamilton, which is it's called the Charleston Digital Hub now. Okay. It was formerly known as Spark, so it's all these tech geeks.
Sure.
And I'd started gigging, with the encouragement of my she was my girlfriend at the time, but now my wife. Mm-hmm. She's also an artist of different sorts, mostly acting and dancing and she's done a little podcasting too. Okay. All right. But she encouraged me to get out and play, and I started doing solo gigs on my own. And the side hustle became like I knew I'd done the open mics, and I'd seen Bob Williams, my drummer. I'd seen him play out, I think, at some of those, and we ended up hooking up and talking music. Yeah. We talked shop, and we decided to start a band. So awesome. We started off as a duo. It was just an acoustic guitar and drums. It was really weird, and and there was I was still learning a lot on the fly because we definitely. But the first gig that we played was for like a little benefit tour. They do like a thing for kids that are, I forget exactly what the issue that they have is. Yeah. But they need some kind of financial help, and it's in Somerville. And so Bob showed up one day. We'd never practiced anything. He has a cajon, or not a cajon. He had a djembe. I had the acoustic guitar, and we jammed. And right off the bat there was a connection. Like Bob's a very tasteful player.
That's a rarity.
And it is. Yeah. And he's one of those guys. He gets behind the kit. He listens to you, and then he just kind of fills in the spaces and does it just. And so we went from there. We ended up bringing in the guy that I mentioned earlier, who runs the open mic, Martin Butcher, on bass. Okay. And so this was 4 years ago. And so then we started gigging together, as a acoustic kind of trio. Right on. Eventually, we bring in other cats so Bob and Drew had done some stuff together. And Drew Washington, he's a bass player, and we brought him in. And then we ended up with a 4-piece. Okay. And sound keeps getting bigger. Then we bring in. I was like, and at that point, it was just like grow. Sure. And then Jeremiah King. You've heard him. Fantastic keyboard.
I've never actually met him. He's one where I've seen him on the social medias and heard him through that, but Never met Jeremiah.
It was through my open mic that I was running. Same one that you would come and play at. He had come and played.
Right on.
And he wasn't even doing shit. Like, he was a musician student, like at College of Charleston Southern University for jazz. And he would come in and play, and I'd just be blown away every time. I'm like, I can't fucking do any of this. Like, he's one of those, you know, and I think you actually have like a little bit of training in your background, you know, and like, I feel like guys that you understand music at a level that I don't really understand it, you know, like,
it doesn't matter.
I know it doesn't matter.
You know, it's good to fall back on, but at the same time, rule followers never, you know, don't blaze a trail. But at the same time, there's a guy like, do you know who David George Sink is?
Yes.
There's a guy like that. He's theory up and down one side and the other, but also he'll play it tasty.
Yeah,
you know, well, it's too easy to get lost in the sauce if you know a little too much theory.
That's one of the reasons. That's how I convince myself not to practice and learn anything all the time, man. And I just because I do pick up the instrument as a creative outlet.
Yeah.
And so a lot of stuff just kind of happens. And you know, like, I think that's how, if you listen to the Side Hustle, if you listen to my stuff, you'll understand why. I think you can understand why it's kind of all over the place.
Well, I'll tell you, the Side Hustle EP is the extent of my knowledge of the Side Hustle,
and that's all we've done at this point. So we got the EP out. At that point, we just had Drew. Jeremiah hadn't even joined up. And so then, but though I'll say all this, like, so we got it all going, and I won't get too heavy into it, right? But things happened at one point, and we weren't able to play a really big gig all together. And I'll just be honest, like, at that point in my life, I was still like kind of learning about how to, I don't know, just be a good band member.
Yeah.
I was the band at that point in time. I was really considered myself the band leader, and I don't fault myself for that in too many ways, because a lot of times the guys in the Side Hustle were all, hey, you know, like, what do you want to do? Or, hey, how do you think this should go? Or, hey, and I'm the one booking all the shows mostly at the time. So I really was the captain of the ship. And so whenever this happened, I really, really went off the rails. I had just gotten a tooth pulled. I was on a bunch of dope, you know, for that. Not actual literal dope. Like, I was on legal prescription drugs, like Vicodin. But I was in a really bad mental state, and I unloaded on a fellow band member, and after that, it kind of fucked things up, you know, and it changed that relationship. However, I was venting to another friend of mine, Roger Mindwater. Yeah. And we ended up kind of connecting, and we had already connected with the open mic and a few other places, and it kind of like ended up opening up the avenue for Blue Ricky to happen. That's what brought,
So that EP. Yeah. Who recorded it? How'd you record it?
The EP was recorded with Cody McGuire.
Okay.
He's a super talented bluegrass player, and it's another person that I met at Spark, which is now called the Charleston Digital Hub Blues Allen Hamilton's thing. You know, I met him there as well.
Right on.
And he recorded. It was all a home recording. He did some of the recording. Bob did some in his house.
Okay.
Drew did some in his home as well. So they all could just kind of do their. Oh, Drew actually went to Cody's place.
Okay.
Cody he just had 2 new kids, so he's real busy with that and hasn't really been active. But he played with us. But yeah, he did all the recording.
I mentioned rockabilly earlier.
Yeah.
Because that EP, I actually do get a bit of a rockabilly vibe.
Oh, yeah.
The 2 songs that I don't get it off of are Do My Thing and Charleston Bro. But the other ones, I totally get a rockabilly. I mean, the bass even walks on a couple songs, the drums and the vibe. It's and I feel the punk in it too.
Yeah.
It's not as much Stray Cats as it is Reverend Horton Heat knocking on the door of, but I just felt that vibe.
No, it definitely is. And I was heavy, and I was really listening to a lot of that, you know, and the rockabilly thing. I was listening to a lot of like Little Richard and a lot of what would be considered R&B back then, you know, but now but them, and then, you know, there was kind of a revival of that going on, I feel like, at that time too. And I was connecting with that, you know, like Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats. You know, they were kind of doing the thing that it was old rock and roll.
Kind of the throwback.
Yeah, it was very nostalgic. And so and I was kind of like just dabbling in it. JD McPherson was another rockabilly dude that I was definitely listening to at the time. So there was an influence there. The punk really wasn't like at the time. I wasn't really listening to it, and I think it really.
But
came,
it's in there. It's in your veins. Like it's like you can't get rid of that at this point. I know you were like aiming for an Americana thing. Yeah, but I mean, it's still in there.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
If you look at the song structure. Yeah, and then the attitude.
Now, were you writing as a group, or were you just?
I wrote everything. On that EP. Right And that's actually something that we're moving away from now that we've reformed. So COVID, we took some big hits, and we weren't able to practice. We weren't able to. I thought that we were kind of over on, honestly. Well, for Drew had, for some reasons, he had to kind of take a step back. But it was just recently. Just in the last couple of...
Yeah, I saw you guys were going to
just the last month. And so, we've got that. That was our first show last Friday. Was our first show back together as a trio.
Awesome.
And it felt great.
Very nice.
It was a different approach because we had always a focus on the acoustic.
Yeah.
So the Side Hustle is kind of like a brainchild of like a solo player. Kind of like, let's make a band from these songs at that point. Yeah. But I think going forward, we're going to be a lot more collaborative in the writing space. Just because I'm more of that's more of the mindset that I'd like to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That Side Hustle EP. Yeah. What's your favorite? Do you have a favorite song off of that?
Honestly, I think it is Charleston, Bro.
Okay. Right on.
Just because it's to me, like Charleston, Bro is like. It's one of those ones that I could play it anywhere in this area, and like I'm going to get a reaction.
It actually reminded me a lot of when you did. There's some song you did about white girls.
Oh yeah, Too Many White Girls.
Oh dude, that's a great. That's like the B-side to Charleston.
It is.
That's the.
I wrote it with every intention, like as this is the sister song to the brother song.
Nice.
Yeah, and nice. I wanted to make sure that the ladies got their piece of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that EP, what if you could give it a letter grade?
Oh, it's like a C.
Okay, yeah, I'm brutally honest about my own stuff. I'm so brutal with my own stuff.
Yeah, I would be a C minus actually. Like
here we go.
Yeah, well, I mean, the production, and this is not against Cody. It's just not what I envisioned at the time. Or heard in my ear. And it's not anything his fault. It's that like I couldn't communicate any of that. I wouldn't even know. And also too, I think we're all over the place, sound wise. We didn't really have like a well-defined sound.
Okay. Yeah, because you're still figuring it out as you're doing it.
We were. But it's definitely, it's a C minus.
Now.
It's average.
Blue Ricky.
Yeah.
So Roger, and who's the bass player?
Scott Bronner.
Okay, I actually haven't met Roger.
Okay,
that's I know he's going around doing the things, but I haven't met him.
He's not out a lot. He's actually a single dad, and so that's kind of the thing that keeps him. He's not as active as he probably would be if he wasn't. Because he has a lot of he has to do a lot of childcare, and so he doesn't have the time and space open for performing as much. So that's probably why you haven't run into each other, or you haven't had an opportunity to see him.
Well, there's a thing with musicians, man, that we're all playing shows. Yeah. So every night I'm playing a show is a night I'm not seeing another musician.
Yeah.
In a weekend night I have off.
You just want to chill.
It's a date night a lot. Because most of the time it's like...
It's good.
My wife has to come to my shows and all that stuff. And so it that becomes a thing. You just get used to not seeing people.
We do. That is a thing. And I would say... But Roger's, he's very... If you look him up, he's prolific as hell. Like,
I see that, man.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And he's incredibly talented.
Yeah.
Is it something where... Was Blue Ricky intended to be a punk band off the rip, or was it a thing where it's okay? It's like let's have fun because what I get from Blue Ricky is just fun. Like I get that you're having fun.
Yeah, that's good. And right off the just from the very get go. Yeah, like it was like this is the intention of we wanted it to be a punk band. We knew we were in that genre at least, and we started doing, we originally just did like 10 covers just to kind of get it together. Yeah. And so we're covering like Op Ivy, Rancid, Misfits, like some pretty basic stuff, like not too big on deep dives, but we knew that that's where we wanted to go. And then fun was like a big thing. And I think it's becoming like we haven't put it out yet, but things are becoming more personal, with our writing. The EP of Blue Ricky is just, it's just straight up fun and having a good time, and it's noisy and ruckus. And we did that with Return to Zero with Todd Brown, who runs sound at Tin Roof.
I was going to ask about, I saw, there was that live at Return to Zero as well. Was that like a... What is Return to Zero? What is it?
Return to Zero is a down in I guess it'd be considered James Island, Folly Beach.
Okay.
And he's got a studio. He records people. He's recorded a ton of bands locally. He also has a couple of his own punk bands. He's in
nice.
Todd's, and but it's Todd's place. It's a huge warehouse.
Okay.
It's super cool.
Awesome.
And we did some we've done shows there, so that's actually a live show, and it's a whole thing.
Okay. Is there a Charleston punk scene?
Yes.
Is there?
Yeah.
Now, this is a thing I don't know because, I generally don't go out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a thing.
There's at least, I would say there's at least 10 active bands.
Nice.
Maybe there's probably more that, because I think there's a lot of people that don't necessarily get to get out and play often.
So if there's 10 punk bands, my math means there's probably 4 bass players.
Yeah.
No, is it one thing?
That is a thing. There's a dude, Brendan Sheely is in every damn punk band that's not in ours.
100%. Nobody wants to play bass. So if you're a bass player and you play punk, you're probably in 6 bands.
There's one. Scott is very much a bass player.
Okay.
Yeah, Scott is definitely, and thank God for that.
Yeah, he's not just a guitar player that lost the coin toss.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been that guitar player.
Yeah, I knew he was a bass player, and it was cool being able to approach him as knowing that he plays bass and not being having to talk down. A guitar player.
Right.
He's right off the bat.
Yeah. That's, oh man. I don't understand the mindset of somebody that chooses bass and then
I loved it.
No, it's fine. Yeah. It's fine.
But no, it's limited if you want to write. Whenever I picked up bass at 14, 15, it was because I was I love the sound of it. It's just such a, it's the big sound in the band that no one hears.
I found a band that there was a couple guys. We weren't a band, but it was a couple guys that played guitar, and they were just oh, you want to learn how to play guitar?
Yeah,
you got to buy a bass, play bass, and then maybe we'll teach you how to play guitar. But I have a lot of respect for people that play bass and do it in that very special way, where it's not just the root and fifth like you're a guitar player.
Yeah.
So I know everybody's go-to is Ramones. That's always, I looked up, they wrote an article when you released your second record, your first kind of studio full length as Blue Ricky. And Ramones was in the first paragraph.
Yeah.
Is there something you feel more connected to than the Ramones?
Oh,
I would hope.
Oh yeah, for sure. I do feel a really deep connection to the Ramones. But let me nerd out for a second, I guess, and speak of some punk bands that people haven't heard and or may never listen to, and that would be the bands Screech and Weasel, the Queers, who we're actually playing with. To have, I can get into that a little more, but Swing and Utters was a huge band for me. They actually kind of did a whole cowpunk thing, they made it okay for me to start doing the acoustic thing, and might be what you would hear the country style punk.
Sure.
Yeah, they were a big band for me. The Operation Ivy was, I think, a big band for a lot of people that kind of dug just a little bit under the surface. And who would be another one from that particular scene? I would say I have a deep connection with. The Minutemen, Husker Du, and that's really my biggest, probably, is all those particular bands. So just rattling off a bunch.
Sure, yeah.
The one that I've had the deepest connection with for the longest would be Screech and Weasel. I did a pilgrimage. I relocated my life for several months to go make money, do construction, and then make it to Chicago to see them.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, so Screech and Weasel, and then Swing and Utters really stayed with me for a long time too, just because I just like their approach to that genre. They were also a band that you call them punk, but they were very much kind of like the Clash, where they were I'm going to draw on a bunch of different genres and just throw an acoustic song in the middle of the album. They were very much like that, and I always liked that about them.
The Clash, I feel some R&B in the Clash.
R&B and rockabilly, I mean everything. They were just about being a global kind of mindset.
They didn't want to put themselves in a box of any type.
They didn't, and there's something to be said for that, and there's something to be said for like the Ramones and what they did.
Oh yeah, it's so the Ramones are like, I think people look down on AC/DC.
Yeah,
but to just say we're this, we're going to do this. This is who we are. And we're not going to try to do that. That's like beautiful too in its simplicity, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it can lead to a more gratifying experience for the musician too, I think.
Sure.
Because I feel like if you operate within certain confines and boundaries, you have to approach each song within those confines.
Yeah.
And so it can make it easier to express yourself.
You can be paralyzed by unlimited decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Now, does Blue Ricky write songs as a band?
We don't actually write as a band necessarily. I feel like we write as individuals, but both myself and Roger contribute.
Right.
We keep trying to get Scott to add in a little bit. He's written a couple, but they just didn't stick.
Okay.
But we do write. We usually come into a practice prepared with a song, and some minor changes might be made by the other members, but overall, like the structures, everything are written beforehand.
Right on. Mm-hmm. Right on. Your I guess it would be your first full length recorded in a studio.
Yeah.
Was really recorded in the rehearsal space.
It was really recorded in Roger's bedroom.
It sounds great, man.
Oh,
I mean, what do you think of recording yourself versus other people recording? Do you like that? Or do you intend to do that in the future? What's your
It was more out of necessity.
Yeah.
I think we had for us it was like we couldn't really gig out. We were on lockdown.
Yeah.
We were even on the fence about meeting up with each other at that point.
Sure.
And it was like, well, we have all these songs and we need to record and why don't we just do it ourselves? Like it was
sounds great.
Yeah,
man.
thanks. I appreciate it. I mean, I would change some things, but
always. I mean, that's the thing about like, if you're left to tinker with something forever, you'll never let go of it. And then when it gets pulled out of your hands and put out there, you always say,
yeah.
I mean, I'd record my entire album over again.
Yeah.
I just would.
Well, I'm not happy with my own vocal performance on it. So
now I read a little bit that you recorded a lot of it live and then did a few overdubs.
Well, we just overdubbed the vocals.
Okay.
But yeah, it was recorded live in the bedroom.
Wow.
We have plans to record in January.
Oh.
There's another punk band out of Atlanta area called Billy Bats and the Made Men.
Okay.
And there's a young man, oh my God, I'm dropping names and now I'm forgetting them. Brody Wilson. He's one of the members of that band, but he's recorded with Joe Queer a few times in his studio and used his stuff. But we're going to be recording with him.
Give me some of your, you got a favorite song off of Let's Go to the Show?
Oh, Let's Go to the Show. That particular, I love White Gables.
Okay.
Just because out of really crazy coincidence, both myself and Roger have lived in that neighborhood.
Okay.
We're literally living like, less than a mile apart at one point, probably. Right. And I just think it's just a funny song, and it kind of tells a story.
Right on.
And I just like, I don't know, it's confrontational too.
Yeah. Give that one a grade.
Yeah. The EP?
The EP, yeah.
I think it's like a B+.
B+.
Yeah,
okay.
I was happy with with it. I thought it was a good introduction to us.
Right on.
Yeah.
And now live at Return to Zero. What's your grade on that?
C-.
C-.
Yeah.
Now, are there any
maybe
of those,
a D?
Are there any of those songs that you think turned out well?
I'd have to go back and listen to it. I listened to it a decent amount, I was still really working on my vocals.
Okay.
I'm not once again not happy with my vocal performance on that particular that thing. To explain that one, we went into that particular show, and I did not realize that we were going to be recording that day. Like, cool. I knew that we were going to be recording and projecting it we were going to have like a live stream.
A live stream, yeah.
But I had no idea that we were going to commit that. And it was also another one of those things that was a product of, well, we can't really do anything this year, so why don't we just Scott was like, I can lift the tracks from Todd and then do something with it.
Sure, yeah.
And so I think it's cool though that it kind of marks a place in time where we were going from just these little EP to like, hey, look at all this different shit that where we're going to end up going into, and it was a lot of them. And I like it, and I honestly haven't listened to it. I beat my recordings to death, picking myself apart, and then I come back to it, and maybe I'll listen to that one again in a year
I
from
find
now.
where like I can't listen to things I've done.
I'm learning that,
and then I'll like accidentally hear it later.
Yeah,
I'll be like, okay, that's not as bad as it was. Worse in my memory, and now that I'm hearing it, it's not that bad.
Well, I've used the recent recordings to really analyze my own sound and to use it as a tool to study myself, to try to improve, and I've overdone it.
Oh, okay.
I've really overdone it. It's bad.
Now, aversion therapy.
Aversion therapy. Yeah.
Give me some good. What are your favorite tracks off of that one?
I love Nintendo.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Thank you.
That's a good one.
I love Nintendo because it really I just think it's a great pop song, and it's just it draws on like nostalgia and I think people can connect with it.
Yeah.
I really like for a Roger track. I have to pick a Roger track and give him props.
Absolutely.
I really like Get Out of My Dreams.
Yeah.
Just because it's very visceral. Yeah. And it's very raw, which I think that's when it comes to Roger, that those are some of the best things that he does. And then Spaz is okay. That's my entire that's half my punk rock experience is like getting there and not being able to get into the show. Or getting put in the all ages portion of the venue that's like a balcony above.
Sure.
I have a whole thing about Bad Religion on that. Bad Religion can go,
Now, what would you give that album as a grade?
It's a C+, so we're getting better, but I feel like that we overall, I just think that it's like, it was like we bit off more than we could chew.
Okay.
And it's a lot of tracks.
Sure.
And I think that it's the right direction, and I'm glad, and I also think that it served a very good purpose of bringing us together in a tough time and giving us some focus, but I feel like that we could do more by working with other individuals, and then also let's call a few tracks, let's maybe it's great to.
I think that people who talk about everything they've done like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Right?
Who are those people?
I call it unearned self-confidence. There's plenty of people, and we run into it as musicians.
Yeah, I'm sure I know a few people.
An abundance of unearned self-confidence, but it's, at least my opinion, it's only through that lack of self-confidence that makes you grow.
Yeah, I agree with that. But there's a fine line between that becoming a destructive, negating force, and then being a positive reflection, and 100%. Then you move on and you do the next thing. And I think during the pandemic and I'm giving these low grades on the things that occurred then.
Yeah.
But I think it was because I had so much time on my hands, and I crawled up my own asshole.
Squandered it.
And it fucking stinks up there.
Well, I mean, everybody felt pressured to do a thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end, we're all humans, man. There are so many things going on during that pandemic, and just the weight of knowing you have time to do something can make you not do something.
Yeah.
Because in your head, there's this mountaintop of a thing you want to do.
Yeah.
And the pressure of
not doing it is there as well. But I think we're finally, even in the last year, the opportunities, they're just starting to happen in the last 6 months, and now I feel like next year, it's things are about to open up, man.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, for us.
Awesome.
We have some road shows planned, and
very good.
We have the big show coming up in February, so it's exciting for that band.
You got a song you want to play for us today?
I'm gonna be playing a couple that that are more in lines with my solo material.
Okay.
And that would be the first one that I guess I'll do is what did I just play earlier? I'm fucking up your timeline. You can edit that out. No,
it's fine. I will
edit that out.
Yep.
No, I'm gonna play Prince of Paupers.
Awesome, man.
Yeah,
let's hear it.
Yeah. All right, let's do it. to the belly of the beast. Watch them slaughter golden calves and wet their lips for the feast. Gather onto their chest the fruits of countless sufferings. All the crown of plastic jewels and pledge allegiance to the king. The prince of paupers, king of thieves, bring the whole world to its knees. He's got no claim to royalties. You catch him lying through his teeth, sipping wine from paperbacks and boxes, bending all the rules. He said they stole away my youth. Go, count me among the fools. I went out chasing my desires. I ended hanging from a string. I've got no fire left in me, but I've got this voice and it sings. Prince of paupers, king of thieves, bring the whole world to its knees. He's got no claim to royalty. You catch him lying through his teeth. Castles on bad foundations, sinking back into history. Knew a boy with a silver spoon in hand, is what he said to me. You know I could have been a millionaire, fuck the girls with golden hair, but that wasn't the life for me. I just had to be free.
Very nice, man.
All right.
I like that. I like that a lot.
All right. Thanks, man.
So that's more your solo stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the solo stuff that probably could have been a Blue Ricky song, you know?
Okay.
Yeah. It's also like the solo stuff that's along the lines of like the more Irish vibe, you know?
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah. Any intention of recording the solo stuff?
Yes, actually, I already have.
Nice.
I worked with Joshua Jarman all last summer. I went out to his little studio in his magic bus. And out there in Cottageville, and so we recorded it, and then I sent the tracks over to Roger and Scott to add some drums and bass, and
nice.
And now we're waiting to finish everything up. So it's been a long,
so
long
that is
way.
That's specifically a Ben Somewhere record.
Yeah.
Even though it's the Blue Ricky guys, it's a Ben Somewhere record.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just asked them to come in, and it wasn't at the time I wasn't working with Drew. And then also too, like, I wanted to kind of I wanted to have a different sound from something I would do with the side hustle.
Okay.
So that's why I brought in Roger on the drums to see, and I also kind of just wanted to see what Roger's interpretation would be.
Yeah.
To something that isn't punk.
Roger seems like one of those guys that first you like see him singing and playing guitar and you're like, oh, that's great. It's great. And then you like see him playing drums. You're like, oh, he can actually play drums.
Yeah.
Like, no, like you guys can't see this, but there's a drum set behind me. I own a drum set and I am not a drummer, but Roger is also a drummer.
Yeah. Well, when I first met him, he was in a band called Campfield. And that was just him and a really close friend. I think his name's also Eric Brown or something like that. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting your name, man. But in case you listen to this, but yeah, they would actually just swap between guitar and drums while they were as a duo. They would just play as a duo, and they would just swap in the middle of the set. And I was like, you guys are fucking insane. Like, what are y'all doing? And yeah, I can't play drums.
Those people, there are people in your life that make you want to simultaneously quit music, and also do it more.
Yeah. But yeah, Roger's one of those guys. Yeah, he's plays a few different instruments and can do it all like with with some, skill, like not. Yeah.
Tell me about your songwriting process. Now, do you
the process?
And I'm not going to
do. It's cool to dig into that.
I'm not going to do a thing where we talk about like, what comes first, the lyrics or the music.
I mean, in a way that I think that is kind of like a good way of talking about it, though. Like,
now, do you sit down to write a song? Do you take?
Usually, no.
Yeah,
like it brews and it percolates, and then I'm like, okay, now it's coming out. Like,
just has to hit you over the head,
and I better do it now.
Okay.
But no, I do sit down with intention to write a song, but like usually what happens is I write riffs. I'm a riff guy.
Yep.
I love writing riffs and music parts, and and so the way that I always wrote with the Superheroes in my very first punk band was he would have riffs, and then I would have this notebook full of ideas, and then I would be like, that riff sounds like this idea to me, and I feel like I could discuss it here, and so and then I would write lyrics from that, like whatever the riff was making me feel.
Now, do you demo this? Does it go on a phone? Or
it's all on my phone.
All on your phone?
And thank God for the fucking iPhone, man.
Oh, man.
It's so cool because I can do that where I can have all these little scratch tracks. And then a lot of times what happens is I'll have that scratch track and I'll just drive around and I'll play it through my iPhone into my car speakers and just kind of like percolate with
sing
it.
Nothing to it until it turns it. You go like, this is a melody, these are the syllables, and
kind of get the melodies and the feel for it, and then eventually what happens there is I get the song, and that's one way. It's not always that way. Sometimes I have a vocal melody, and then the vocal melody's in my head and I have a feeling and I'm like, okay, well, and then with that, I could do with the punk thing. That's what really is great about punk is that I can have the vocal melody, I can have the little idea, and then I can actually just sit and write the song because it doesn't have to be complicated.
Sure. Yeah, the chords become obvious at some point.
And I've started doing that more frequently, and that's not my typical process.
Okay. Yeah. Now, at what point are you like, that's a Blue Ricky song, or that's a Side Hustle song, or that's a solo song?
Well, that's actually pretty easy. Because Blue Ricky songs are all written on the electric. Okay. So, I'm jamming. Usually, I'll practice the, set, wwhatever we got coming up for the show we got coming up. And then once I'm done with the set, or sometimes even in the middle of the set, I'll just start I'll kind of venture off, off the fret, somewhere else on the fretboard, or it makes me feel a certain way. Or once I'm warmed up after playing through the set, I'm like, oh, now I'm ready. And then, so the electric is very much like how I write a Blue Ricky song. I already know it. It's very rare. I don't even know if I could tell you. I don't think I've written any Blue Ricky song on an acoustic guitar.
Really?
Yeah. So
it's an energy too.
Yeah, it's an energy. It's approach, and it's an approach to a certain way too. I know, I'm like, this is Blue Ricky because that energy of that band. The solo stuff, it's the solo Side Hustle stuff can go. They're kind of interchangeable, right? Like a lot of solo stuff I play in a solo gig. I can go and I can play it with the Side Hustle. Sure. And so those two bands, they mesh that way. Yeah. But those are mostly written on an acoustic. Now, is there any crossover, any Blue Ricky songs, or any songs that can play everything? There's only one. Only one. And it's a cover. Okay. But with it's a Pogue song. That's where I heard it originally. But it's Jesse James. Okay. And I do that solo acoustic. I do it. I've done it with the Side Hustle. Yeah. And then Blue Ricky, we do it at shows as well. Man, I like something that crosses. I like hearing a song done different ways, Yeah, it's cool for me too. It's cool to approach it in a different way. Sure. Yeah. Very nice, man. Are there do you have a lot of people, this is a sports thing, give me your Mount Rushmore of so-and-so. Do you have and Mount Rushmore's sort of a loaded thing, but do you have 5, these are my songwriters? Oh, wow. Can you think of any? Well, definitely I can right off the bat. Shane Mcgowan from the Pogues. Lyrically, I absolutely adore his lyrics. I think that he was just a beautiful poet. His songs touch a place in my heart that even talking about it right now, I feel emotions saying that because I don't think I've ever had an opportunity to express it. Great. The second person would be. I get to open for him, but Joe Queer as a punk writer, songwriter. Yeah. his songs, the humor of what he wrote, just, and the willingness. Obviously, their band name is the Queers. The willingness to be provocative and like just piss people off and have fun. Just the spirit of fun that's in the songs that he wrote, and also he was drawing off a lot of really cool genres that were outside of punk. Darius Kosky from the Swingin' Utters. Okay. Just because as a musician, the dude he's a multi-instrumentalist and plays everything and just writes these. I think he drew from Shane McGowan. And then I'm trying to think of some other ones. Can I say a band? Because I just think
100%. Did they write songs?
They wrote songs together.
Then they're songwriters.
Mike Watt and D Boone and the Minutemen together.
Yeah.
I feel like that they wrote just beautiful songs, and just they were just unafraid to be themselves. I think in their music. And I feel like that they were. I just love the way that they approached the idea of punk through other genres. Yeah. And then. Wow, top 5. I'm not rating these guys.
I mean, it doesn't have to be 5. If you're just saying this guy and this guy, it can be 4. It can be 10.
They're really important. I think those particular ones are really important to me. And then Dee Dee Ramone. I just throw him in there just because I feel like they of all the songwriters in punk, I just loved the songs that he wrote for the Ramones.
It's iconic.
Yeah,
it's iconic. I mean, and you'll find like there's a lot of people find somebody with a Ramones shirt and they say, well, name me a Ramones song. I'm not like that, man. Yeah. Like, you will find 13-year-old girls that could sing you Ramones songs. Yeah. That's something. That's not nothing.
No, it's definitely, because it's just universal. Yeah. It's drawing on something that has a universal, it's a universal experience, right? Like, anybody can go to Rockaway Beach. Anybody might find themselves going down to the basement and be, and it's just, they just translated things that were universal experience.
It's a very easy way to get in too.
Yeah. It is. And it's a very easy, I feel like too, that's why, with punk, that they're considered the, I don't know what you call them, the Godfathers or the, I guess Iggy Pop kind of gets that, the Godfather label, but I consider them the creators. I've read enough about the history, and I get the whole British take, but
I never got into that. That was more style than substance to me. I never really got into that.
I did. I mean, because I don't want to knock the Pistols, and I don't want to get into all that because I've read enough, but I do respect, I love the British scene though. I do like the British scene because I love the Clash, and I love
the Clash. To me, the Clash and the Sex Pistols are two completely different things.
Well, yeah, definitely.
And then
another band gets a name drop weird little bands is the Buzzcocks.
Oh yeah,
and I think that they were like kind of doing their own thing there too. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any records, any albums where you like, that's my album?
Oh yeah.
If the needle drops, it doesn't pick up until it's time to go to side B, or it's done. Are there any records where you're like, whole thing or nothing?
That's really tough, because I'm really, like, streaming has really fucked me up.
It's ruined a lot of things, man. Yeah. And I do it too. I make some mixtapes. I make some mixtapes. They're playlists now. Yeah. But there's still some where it's all of it,
Yeah, well, of course, Jimi Hendrix already experienced. I like to listen to that in its completion. And then the Pogues, Rum Sodomy and the Lash. That album is something that I like to listen to in its entirety. And then that's really the biggest ones. Like the minute, like the way you described it, the Minutemen, Double Nickels on a Dime.
I know that one. Yeah.
It's funny, right? Like, that one, I can pick up and listen at any point though, and be happy with it. Like,
it's like one of those movies that if you're flipping through the channels and it's on TV, you're just going to watch the rest of it.
And then another one is Husker Du Zen Arcade.
Okay.
Yeah, which Bob Mould's coming here next year, and I have tickets.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm fucking stoked about that.
Awesome.
He's one of those guys that I haven't got to see yet, and I'm too young to have seen Husker Du, but definitely stoked to see him.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for letting me pick your brain, but I'm not going to let you leave without one more tune. What you got for us?
Yeah, well, this one is definitely the solo songwriter type thing. It's a very, very stripped down, kind of almost a country tune called The Letter.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah.
She said, I'm afraid to be alone. Come on, take my hand, don't you let me go today. It's been so long since I felt this good inside. Don't you leave me here this way. I will cook your breakfast in the morning before your eyes. When you're feeling blue, bring a smile to your face. Try to remember all the little things you like. When you're falling down, I will be your saving grace. He said, sorry, babe, I got to go. I got 1,000 things to do, and none of it will wait. Every day I'm out there, driving down the road, in another time and space. Wish things were different, that's the way it's got to be. The sum of all my choices may be just my destiny. Every time I think I've got it all there in my hands, it all just slips away from me. Turn the wheel around, put the pedal to the floor. Didn't even knock, just went rushing through the door. Shouted out her name, the response was only silence. And found her laid out on the floor with a letter in her hand.
Awesome, man.
Thanks.
Hey, well, thank you so much for hanging out. Looking forward to the Songwriter Showcase out at Free House on December 12th.
Me too.
Going to be you, Noah Grove, Mike Friend. I just really appreciate you being part of this.
Yeah.
This is my third podcast I've ever recorded, so thank you for doing this. And man, everybody check out Ben Somewhere, check out Blue Ricky, check out The Side Hustle. I'm going to have links for everything in the show notes. And thanks for hanging out, man.
Thank you.
Well, that was a lot of fun. I feel like Ben and I probably could have talked for another hour or so about music. Maybe that'll come another day, but for now, thanks for listening to Songs of the Unsung. Thanks for liking us on social media, doing all the good clicks, follows, and shares and such. Got 1 week to go until the first original songwriter showcase at Free House. Really hope to see a lot of folks there. So until then, check out all the artists that have been on the last 3 weeks. Check out their music, their videos, all their stuff. We'll see you at Free House.